we're going to just talk about the World Handicap System and how it's affecting pars and that sort of thing, and just a little update from Richard.
Thanks, Candace. We've had a lot of discussion with some of the clubs about the implications for par that are found in the expanded yardage ranges in Appendix F of the Rules of Handicapping. And just as a little bit of background so that everybody's aware of it and can pass it on to your memberships, please remember and please tell everybody you can that par is established by the way scratch golfers play the game. So if you're a mid-handicapper or a high handicapper, your game does not influence what the par is set to. That's what the scratch golfers, the 0, the 1s, the 2s, the +1 handicappers, if you have any of them. So it's an expectations thing that is common throughout golf, and I've been golfing for a lot of years, and it's been that way forever. But it is, it is the ability of the scratch golfer that define par. And it used to be pretty cut and dried. I'll talk firstly about the values for min. It is assumed in the course rating system that the male scratch golfer will hit an average tee shot of 250 yards and subsequent shots maximum off the fairway of 220 yards. So you add those two together, a tee shot and a full-length fairway wood for that scratch golfer, and you get 470 yards. And that's why 470 yards was originally the breaking point between par 4s and par 5s for min, because the scratch golfers couldn't reach, as defined at least, couldn't reach in 2 shots anything that was over 470 yards. Similarly for women, the defined scratch woman golfer is assumed to be able to average 210 yards off the tee and hit fairway shots of 190, which is why for women, once you get over 400 yards off the tee, you're looking at par 5s for women. So that's fairly clear cut. Those yards are adjusted for what we call playing length. And by that I mean, for example, if the landing zone for a tee shot slopes downhill, the player will likely get a little longer roll than normal. And that shortens the course in terms of how it plays, because he or she's second shot doesn't have to be quite as long. So another one that's really not all that common, but it's definitely easier to figure out. It might be that there is a water crossing, for example, that falls right where the scratch's tee shot would normally be. Well, if that's the case, then that scratch golfer will be forced to lay up short of that crossing of water, and then will obviously not, in terms of the total of 2 shots, get as far off the tee as he would have normally. So that's what, when we mean the effective playing length corrections, those are taken into consideration in terms of determining par in the traditional way before WHS came in. So what did they have in mind when they gave us in the Appendix F these extended ranges of yardage? Well, the purpose was originally intended to make it so that if, for example, a particular hole for min was a par 5 from the back tee, where the majority of the the younger, stronger golfers would be playing. But then there was a somewhat more forward tee, which was not over 470 yards. We might still be able to consider it as a par 5 for the men that would be playing on that tee, because it's recognized that the scratch golfers are not likely to play on a regular basis from the more forward tees. So as I say, there'd been a lot of people, a lot of clubs contact us about, can we change the pars? And to start out with, we were maybe a little more accommodating than we should have been, because where it stands right now is that the Golf Canada Handicap and Course Rating Committee is going to have a look at, and is going to have a look at, how are we going to ensure that these altered distances for par achieve some of the objectives that the World Handicap System intended, without damaging the integrity of the course rating system in terms of the tees that the scratch golfers play most of the time. So what's happened is that the Golf Canada Handicap and Course Rating Committee has struck a subcommittee which has been given the task of coming through or analyzing this and making some recommendations, which will come in this fall, so that the altered or expanded range of handicap, of yardages for par, can be administered uniformly across all of Canada. So for that reason, the Golf Canada Committee is recommending that no adjustments to par be made for the rest of this year until that subcommittee reports and a position is recorded through the Golf Canada Committee. So that sort of brings you up to speed. I should mention one other thing that's significant about what par is, and that is the altitude above sea level. All of those figures, if you're looking at Appendix F in the rules of handicapping, all of those figures in the tables are assuming that the golf course is at less than 2,000 feet above sea level. Now, most of the Saskatchewan courses are, except the southwest corner. And almost all of the southwest corner, Swift Current, Maple Creek, Shaunavon, Assiniboine, all of those areas down there are actually above 2,000 feet altitude. And what happens when you get above 2,000 feet altitude is, in the thinner air, the balls which are hit into the air on a good trajectory will fly farther. And so that will have an impact on par for courses which are above 2,000 feet above sea level. So, and that's something that isn't shown in the table in Appendix F. It's referenced there by saying that this is only for the lower altitude courses. So we're going to have to, for purposes in that corner of Saskatchewan and also over at Kenosee, they're on a kind of a height of land there. It's going to be a big factor for Alberta. It's going to be a huge factor for, the courses up in the mountains and so on. So again, this is something that the Golf Canada Committee feels needs to be addressed, so that we can issue recommendations to all of the provincial associations as to how this can be done in such a way that it's not going to compromise the individual player's handicap index. So, I guess that's sort of a quick explanation. So if you have been talking to us already about changing par, bear with us. We're not going to be able to give you an answer until these recommendations come in September or October. If you're thinking about it, just hold off on that until we get those new rules and guidelines that are going to be established. For those of you that have already changed something, we're not going to retract that just at this moment. We'll just do what we can with what we've got and what we've done. But those courses should bear in mind that we may have to roll back some of those changes too once we see what the more detailed rules are going to require. But again, in the meantime, please, every time you get a chance, tell your members how par is supposed to be determined, and then unless they're a scratch or a 1 or a 2 handicap, it's not determined by them. That understanding alone will probably help a lot of concerns that the club members often bring to their management or to their handicap committees. I'll try to answer any questions if anybody has any. Oh, I see from Brian that he's made me the host so I could share the screen. Well, okay, I will just briefly select the window or an application. Here we go. There, we got it now?
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah.
Okay, these are this is Appendix F, and you can see here there's overlap in their ranges of yardage for the different pars, and that the numbers I mentioned to you earlier are kind of right in the middle of this. For example, if we look at the change for min from a par 4 to a par 5, in the old one, the one that's strictly out of course rating, that's at 470, which is right between these ones here. This taller number here, or longer number for par 4s, is 20 yards beyond that. And the start of where they're showing the par 5s is 20 yards before that. So this is where they're trying to come up with some guidelines that would allow par to be common from the furthest back tees towards the shorter tees that are being added as part of the play it forward. And then here's the point here about altitudes less than 2,000 feet. So those of you in the Southwest will probably end up having different numbers used in determining the par, because your players' tee shots carry farther in the air. And there's the point I was raising about it's the scratch golfer. Another thing here that they talk about is how is the hole designed to be played. An example of this, if you have, say, 2 golf holes, and in one of them, there's nothing really that's big time trouble in front of the green, then it's easier for a long shot on the fairway to roll up onto that green. On the other hand, if you have a hole that's well bunkered in front or has a pond in front or something like that, it's going to be more difficult to roll a shot onto the green. So that's what they mean when they talk about, for example, something that might have been designed as a par 5. Well, you still have to carry that pond or deal with those bunkers in front from a shorter set of tees. So that might be justification for leaving that as a par 5 at the shorter tee, even though it might be less than the book yardage of 470. Anyway, there will be more coming out of this around the end of September or early October. So we will certainly pass whatever is decided on to the clubs. And then over the winter, we can deal with any club requests for changes to par in accordance with all of this. So now, what were the? Okay, I'll stop the share here. Okay, Brian, how do I make you or Ken the host again?
I think if you click, you can click in my window, and there's a three little dots.
Okay.
I think you can make me the host that way.
Okay.
And then Norm has a question for you.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to change the hosting. I see now that we could have co-hosts, which would have been how, if we'd selected that, I could have shared my screen without changing the host over. But you should be the host again, Candace.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Norm.
Yeah, Richard, the last comments you made about the front of a green, and I had sent, Candace and I had talked about this, and then I sent an email that she probably forwarded to you, and which is exactly the argument I was making for the par 5 that changed to a par 4 from our middle tees, and 2/3 of the front of the green is covered with water. The right side is covered with hills, kind of not bunkers, but mounds, and about a 6-yard gap in between that you can roll through, and that's about it. So, and yeah, so it's kind of a layup kind of a thing. If you're coming in with 5 wood from 200 yards,
that's exactly the kind of hole that I was talking about. And as I say, we've sort of been requested not to deal with any of these now, so things will just remain as they are for the balance of this season. But that's the kind of thing we will be looking at over the course of next winter once we've seen these new.
And that's all right with me, Richard, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We're all scoring what we score. So whether we call it a par 2 or par 7, it don't matter. Yeah. But where my issue is in the new system. Before, the old system was, if you were 9 and under, it was double bogey, et cetera. The new system, even with a person with a 2 handicap, he's got 2 holes on 18 that he has to take. He can take a triple bogey with the new system that we've just developed. We're using this here, and so now it becomes where the handicaps are placed. And for the life of me, I cannot understand how the handicap situations, where they come from. When you go onto the Golf Canada Scoring Center and enter your scores, which I'm now doing hole by hole, and as opposed to what I used to previously do was the thing. And I'm getting, there's not many people in our club that are actually, pretty faithful about entering their scores, but there are some. And so, I'm, most of them are getting frustrated because, they have to know what the handicap is, and the scoring center gives us a handicap, and for the life of me, I cannot understand where that came from when I change a very difficult par 4 into an 8 handicap, and a very easy par 5 on the same hole from the front to the back is a 1 handicap, and I have no idea whether that's the United States Golf Association, whether it's Golf Canada, or whether that's you guys that established the handicap. Because in 2014, when I inquired about the handicapping of the holes, I was told, 3 different scenarios to do it. Golf Saskatchewan didn't do it. I did it by gathering scores over 200-300 rounds of golf, and then doing it that way. It's a little different now. So how did this handicap come in place? Because it doesn't make sense to me how our holes are handicapped from. I can't speak for the ladies because I couldn't enter my score as a lady, but I can do from the 3 tees for myself, and I really don't understand how that handicap changes so drastically from the back tees to the front tees.
Historically, those numbers came from the clubs, and they may or may not have been determined using the collect scores and the mathematical approach. Just sort of in terms of an explanation of that, first thing you need to know is that the number 1 handicap hole is not necessarily the hardest hole on the golf course. The handicap allocation was based on what hole has the greatest difference in difficulty between the scratch and the bogey golfer.
Yeah. And I understood that's exactly how I handicapped the course in 2015. Yeah.
So those numbers normally would have been in the past entered by the local club's golf. Well, it was the before the score center, the standalone program even, but now that would have been transferred into the score center, and it may well be vastly out of date. What the World Handicap system is recommending, not insisting on, but recommending, is the organization of the handicap hole allocations into what they call triads.
Yes.
So holes 1, 2, 3 would be a triad, 4, 5, 6 would be a triad, and so on. Yes. And they are recommending that the number 1 allocation hole be in the middle triad of that front 9, and that they alternate so that the 1, 2, and 3. Well, 2 would be in the other 9 anyway. But say the 1, 3, and 5 allocations not be in the same triad. And the reason for that is that they were finding in too many situations, match play games were ended before the player who received a stroke from the other player got to use that stroke. So this is what their objective is to spread it around a little bit over the 18 holes of the golf course, in terms of, as you get 1, 2, 3, or 4 strokes from your opponent in match play, it's distributed over the holes of the entire golf course. Now, there is a function in the USGA's course rating application now that enables a triad sorting of holes that way, and any club that wants that information, just send a request in to Golf Saskatchewan, and we can produce that. You don't have to use it, but we can give it to you, and you can see how it might agree or disagree with the way it was sorted out before, which was not based on these triads. And then each club can decide if that's what they want to use or not. And that will come down different values, of course, for men and women, because the holes play differently for the men and the women. So we can generate that information. If a club wants, they might want, say for the men, they might want 2 different ones, one for the back tees and one for a forward tees. If you've got both a senior men's club and a men's club that play from different tees, you might want that, and the system is capable of doing that as well. But if you're sending in a request for Golf Saskatchewan to do that, and it probably won't get much response until going on into the fall, because I'm sure all the staff are pretty busy at being tournament season and all that sort of stuff. But in any case, we can produce that information. Just make sure in your request that you send in, identify which tees the majority of the golfers play, and if there's, say, a white and a blue that gets equal play, sort of who plays which, where do the more advanced golfers play, where do the seniors all play. Normally, as I say, we just have one sorting of the allocations for the men and another one for the women, but it is certainly possible to have different ones for different tees.
Okay.
Richard, we're running a little bit late here, so Gord from Waka, he has a question next, and maybe what I'll do is, if Norm has any more questions, I might just put you two in contact with each other, and you can give him a phone call just to follow up with any other questions he might have. So I'm gonna let Gord go next from Waka, and then we're gonna switch right on over to Blair with Golf Canada, okay?
Yep.
Thanks.
Richard, I'm just wondering, I've been trying to find out with the new World Handicap system, you have a Golf Canada membership, and then there's a lot of people who travel south and also have a GIN, USGA GIN number. The handicaps, the way I understood it, were supposed to be melded together at some point. Just wondering if that's going to happen, and also if a person has a Golf Canada membership, and are you required to also have a GIN? Because that's been the case in the past in certain clubs in the US and Mexico.
Okay, I'm pleased to be able to give you an answer to that question, because we just found out on Monday that that system has now been developed. And so assuming people are allowed to go south this winter, they will have that full integration where their scores will appear in both the GIN and the score center. I think all they will have to do is in your score center account, I think, because I haven't done this, but I think from what I was told, all you'll have to do is click a button in there to cause your score center scoring record and your GIN scoring record to merge the way you're talking about.
That's excellent news. I appreciate that. And I know there's a ton of Canadians in Mexico that are looking forward to being there next year, and as well as having the melded handicaps.
I don't know how that works for them. Do they use the GIN system down there?
Well, I play in Mazatlan, and they use the New Mexico USGA GIN. Yes.
Oh, okay. So as long as it's the USGA GIN, it will merge. I'm not sure about any others. I wouldn't think so.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll look forward to the information coming.
Thanks, Richard, for all your explanations and input on the World Handicap System. If anyone else does have any more questions, you can email me or email Richard, and we can go from there and discuss any concerns or issues that you have.